Welcome to the Cognitive Crucible, produced by the Information Professionals Association. Our website is information-professionals.org, where you can find links and information about today's conversation and get access to members-only content. Join John Bicknell and explore all aspects of our generational challenge, cognitive security. The Cognitive Crucible is a forum that presents different perspectives and emerging thought leadership related to the information environment. The opinions expressed by guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of or endorsement by the Information Professionals Association.
My guest today on the Cognitive Crucible is Colonel Rob Thelan, who is the Chief of Staff of the Department of the Army's Strategic Operations Directorate. Rob Thelan, welcome to the Cognitive Crucible.
Hey, John, thanks. It's really great to be here, finally. I appreciate
Excellent.
it.
Yeah. And to our audience, I would just like to let everybody know that Rob Thelan's opinions are his own and do not represent the opinions of the U.S. Army or the Department of Defense. So the conversation that I'd like to have with you today, Rob, will cover your primary objective, I think, today, which is the Army's new IWAR initiative and unpacking that. But before we get into this topic, could we please start by getting your assessment of our strategic landscape?
Yeah, absolutely, and I appreciate the offer to do that. I actually wrote about the strategic landscape specifically within the information environment a couple years ago while I was in the War College, and what struck me is that we are significantly outpaced by our adversaries. By all accounts, China is spending upwards of $10 billion a year with operations within the information environment. Russia, while it's unknown exactly how much they're spending, they are implementing this global megaphone of information operations using bots and personas and that sort of thing, and as we've seen, they're intent on impacting our elections. And when you talk about the mark of a true priority for governments, it all is tied back to money. So if we're being outspent 10-1 by China, our whole of government expenses and funding for informations within the information environment or operations within the information environment total a little less than $1 billion a year. So our $1 billion compared to China's $10 billion, clearly we're getting grossly outspent. And it's really clear that our pacing threat, China, and clearly our adversary Russia, prioritize these operations, and frankly, we don't. Strategically, the other thing we've experienced, from within our community, our information operations community, is that we're very stovepiped. And it's oftentimes hard to understand what the left hand is doing, if you're sitting at the right hand because of those stovepipes. So while I think we're doing things to break down some of those walls, especially within the Department of War, we're a long ways from breaking down the stovepipes as much as our adversaries are doing. So, that also causes, the authorities issues, right? Within the Department of Defense, it's still easier to drop bombs in the Department of War than it is to drop leaflets, right? And that is, who is approving the PSYOP packages that are going out and the leaflets that are going out, vices, whereas is that authority level, for dropping a bomb? Well, psychological operations packages are often required to be approved at the Secretary of War level.
Is that right? Wow.
where, dropping of the bombs can be, delegated all the way down to the first general officer in the chain of command, sometimes all the way down to an O6. So, just, that example is one that, we're constantly struggling with within our community of interest when we talk about cognitive security, information operations, and information warfare with the Department of War. So,
Yeah, yeah. You were talking about the challenges of stovepipe capabilities. I was just in communication with a previous Cognitive Crucible guest, public affairs officer, and he was sharing with me as how Air Force, how he and his colleagues are trying to work themselves into the, like the current operations or into the planning phase of operations, not to engage as public affairs, but rather to be at the table while the planning is happening so that it better informs their inform mission when it comes time for that. And so that it can all be a lot more complementary and synergistic. I read your bio, Rob, and I saw that you've got some experience in the public affairs information related capability for the Army. What's your take on where public affairs has been and where it should be when it comes to current current operations of influence?
yeah, I can't talk for the Air Force,
Yeah,
right? But
right. Yeah.
what I'm hearing you say is actually a great step forward, right, for the public affairs community. In the Army, now I did the majority of my public affairs work as a prior enlisted member, but then I was also able to command a public affairs detachment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Deployed with a public affairs detachment to Bosnia way back in the day, and public affairs always has had a Heisman approach to integrating with the staff and
Yep.
really integrating with operations, right?
This fellow shared the same kind of a sentiment. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
we're the informed function.
That,
We're communicating back to the homeland on we're informing them.
yeah,
That's
one,
that's
one,
that's what we do. Yeah.
absolutely, 100%, and that is what they do.
Yeah,
But I
sure.
think
Of
I
course.
think as a community, the public affairs community has also embraced the fact that informing is also a way to influence,
Hmm.
right? So while they were always a commander's special staff, the fact that they are actually trying to get into the planning stages and bake some public affairs guidance into to operations is a huge step forward, and it's a tremendous step for us information operations practitioners, because that was always that outside piece, right? If we're we reside in the operations function within the Army, right? We're the three nines out there, right? Um, so public affairs was always a coordinating line, right? If they can come in, they can be at the table while we're developing plans and developing non-lethal effects and those sorts of things, and they realize how they can support that. That's a tremendous step forward, and
Yeah.
I'm really really glad to hear it. I hope we get there, and I do see a lot of positive steps in the Army, specifically with the public affairs community integrating with the operations folks.
Yeah, yeah, cool. Agree. Um, I didn't read your full bio. That would have taken 5 minutes at the beginning, Rob. But before your current role, which we will get to at the Department of the Army, you were a DoD representative with the U.S. Department of State. Could you share with the audience what you were doing there and some of your observations, takeaways, and so on?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, for context, you don't just wake up one day and say I'm now a senior military advisor at the Department of State.
Hmm.
But I got there through a series of really fortunate assignments. One at the European Command early in my career. I was also at the Africa Command, AFRICOM, in the 3-9 there. I was at Special Operations Command, doing special activities within the 3-9. Then the Joint Staff, also doing 3-9 type activities. So I was able to get a lot of experience across the Department of what was then Department of Defense, now Department of War. And it was just that natural progression after going to the War College of, okay, well, what's next? Well, an interagency assignment seemed appropriate, and the opportunity to go into the Global Engagement Center at the Department of State was a extremely fulfilling, professionally fulfilling and eye-opening experience
Mm.
for me.
Right.
The Department of State Global Engagement Center, my first interaction with them was in 2016 or 2017, while I was at AFRICOM, and a gentleman came over and introduced himself. He says, I'm with the Global Engagement Center, and these are all the great things we're going to do to combat mis and disinformation within your area of responsibility on the African continent. And he gave us a great overview, and then at the end said, and we have no funding and we have no people. And so that
Back
was really,
back to your original observation about the strategic landscape.
yeah, exactly. But fast forward then to 2024 when I got there to the Global Engagement Center, and it had grown to a footprint of about 160 people. They had around a $60 million budget, and they were the only government entity that was specifically tasked with identifying, understanding, and countering our adversaries' mis and disinformation programs. Um, they were they were really getting traction in this space. They were coordinating whole of government efforts. They were taking the lead, whereas Department of Defense typically takes the lead if no one else is, right? And they were adversary focused, right? So they had a China branch, they had a Russian branch, they had an Iran section, as well as a North Korea and VEOs, right? So we were in all of the spaces that the Department of Defense was. So my role there was the senior military advisor, and I was to, understand what they were trying to do, and then be able to bring forward Department of Defense / Department of War capabilities that can assist them in their global fight and whole of government fight on the mis and disinformation uh, fight. So, they were really doing a lot of great things. They were building a coalition of the willing with
Hmm. Hmm.
multiple countries out there saying, hey, here's how we see the mis and disinformation that is coming in from our adversaries. Do you, said country, see it the same way? Yes, we do. Okay, what can we do to share resources and leverage our capabilities and your capabilities and our authorities and your authorities to really have a united front against this the mis and disinformation that was coming in. It was really gaining a lot of traction. Um, they were also into the AI and the gaming world. They were really forward leaning on that,
Is
and
that
and
right?
a
Yeah.
lot of great initiatives leveraging AI, being thought leaders in the AI world and the gaming world, and how can we leverage these types of capabilities and technologies to do this. So a lot of really great things going on. Unfortunately, they were deemed not aligned with the current administration and doged. When I got there in June of 2024, there were 160 people, and
Hmm.
March of this year, they were down to zero.
My goodness.
Um,
Yep.
and so, that's clearly a decision that's way above my pay grade. But the question that remains then is who fills that gap? Who's now coordinating whole of government efforts to fight mis and disinformation? And I think that's a question that's still left to be unanswered. But that's also what brought me back to the Department of the Army,
Mhm.
because there was nowhere else for me to go in the State Department. So I'm getting re-greened in the Army, and really, really happy with being at the Strategic Operations Directorate and focusing on this IWAR initiative.
Oh, okay. All right. That's excellent. Uh, uh, lot I could ask about, but your final point, I think, is really profound in that uh, you know uh, vacuums get filled. I mean, the platitudes like "nature abhors a vacuum" is. I mean, there's a lot of truth in that, and so you know when these big complex systems have big changes, then you can expect some kind of a big change in response to it as well. So presumably, if I'm reading you right, we're already at a funding deficit compared to our adversaries. But if compound the funding deficit with a just lack of information supply or a lack of an engagement deficit now with the GEC being gone, such as it was, there's the void in whatever it was doing is being filled or will soon be filled.
Yeah, yeah, and put it on, into military terms. Have we ceded that ground, right?
Hmm.
So if we've backed off, from a front line, yeah, absolutely, that adversary is going to move forward and take that ground, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, again, I'm not sure if that has fully happened, and who is filling that gap, but um, I think you can probably make some assumptions that gap is being filled because we're not actively countering it.
That's right. Yeah. What I think it's attributed to Lenin. It's like, probe with bayonets, or probe as long as there's mush, keep going, but until you hit something like, okay, that's far enough.
That's right.
Um, yeah. Um, okay. So, oh yeah, and by the way, to our audience, we did a episode a couple of years ago with your fellow, I'm sure Mike Taylor,
Sure.
Rob, and Mike was also at the GEC a couple of years ago. So we'll have a link in the show notes if anybody wants to listen to what Mike Taylor and his colleagues were up to back when the GEC was up and running. Um,
Yeah, and
okay.
just to give
Yeah.
Mike some credit,
Yeah.
he was he really brought the military presence and the ability to become a true senior military advisor to the Global Engagement Center to the forefront, right?
Hmm.
He did tremendous things with not only bringing forward the capabilities of the Department of Defense, but educating those State Department employees of the Global Engagement Center of what is the Department of Defense? How are they organized? What are the true capabilities? Right? How do we leverage those capabilities? And he was excellent. And then his predecessor, Jason Wright, who I backfilled,
Mm.
just took it one step further, and was able to get into the front office as that senior military advisor to the politically appointed coordinator, and really have the ear of that person, and really creating a deeper understanding of for that global engagement center of how powerful leveraging the Department of Defense could be.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So you are now the Chief of Staff of the Army's Strategic Operations Directorate, and you are heavily involved in the Army's IWAR initiative. Could you just take a moment and tell our audience what the Strategic Operations Directorate is all about, generally, but then let's start talking about IWAR.
Yeah, if folks are familiar with the at the division and corps level within the Army of the G39 construct, right? It's the staff section that really does information operations and synchronizes and coordinates all of those specific activities that are capabilities that help produce an effect within the information environment, right? So we're talking about IO, information operations. We're talking about psychological operations, cyber, electronic warfare, public affairs, right? All of those. The strategic operations director at the headquarters department of the Army is really that, right? We really function as the 3-9 for the Army. Some people call it the junk drawer of the Army, right? As in we get all this other stuff, but really we're focused within, information operations, cyber, electronic warfare, that sort of thing. So I'm also the director for the information division within the Strategic Operations Directorate.
Ah,
So one of our big rocks within our rucksack at that level is the creation of the information warfare branch for the Army. Now we're not doing it in a vacuum. We are one leg of the three-legged stool of folks that are doing this. One is the Special Operations Center of Excellence down at Fort Bragg.
okay.
And the other third leg is the Combined Arms Center at Fort Leavenworth, which houses the IO proponency.
Is that right?
So,
Okay.
so you've got the three entities and organizations that are really working diligently on this creation of the new information warfare branch.
Gotcha. So, what put yourself into the shoes of a skeptical audience uh, member right now who has been around the Army as long as you have and is rolling his or her eyes right now, thinking like oh my goodness, the Army is doing this. What kind of thing would you say to someone who's like skeptical of this initiative and what you guys are doing with the workforce?
Yeah, sure. You know, information warfare is really a new term of art within the Army. We've historically shied away from saying information warfare
Mm,
and called it information operations in the information environment. These types of things that were didn't really explain what it is doing, right?
hmm hmm
It's really focused on a more offensive um, position,
hmm
right? And we are still integrating, capabilities that are out there, right? I said that we, shied away from certain terms, right? Psychological operations is a great example, right?
hmm hmm
PSYOP was what we used in the Vietnam era, and then it turned into psychological operations, and then I think that got scary for people, so they turned it into MISO, right? With
mm.
the military information support operations, and then so we created MISO officers that were conducting psychological operations, right? So we're really tearing down some of those less direct terms,
hmm
right? And
hmm
creating this thing of information warfare that integrates those capabilities to achieve an effect on the battlefield. And really, we're focused on the decision making of the adversary commanders on the battlefield. So what do? We integrate psychological operations. We leverage cyber warfare and electronic warfare. We leverage space. We leverage public affairs for the broader audiences. We leverage deception, right? These types of things are all combined, and an information warfare officer, once fully trained, is going to be able to bring all of these capabilities to the commander, both in the conventional forces and the special operations forces. So it's really going to be an effective transition and evolution of what is now stovepiped capabilities. It's all now going to reside within one branch, and we're going to be able to synchronize and understand deeply how to bring those capabilities forward.
So is the IWAR project then both? I'm hearing it, partially at least as like a manpower project, manpower and structure and career progression and combining of MOSs into the IWAR Ockfield, I think. Do I have that right? But then right adjacent to all of that is the, bringing together and synergizing capabilities as you were describing with cyber and other capabilities.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be clear, right, the cyber capability is still going to be out there. They're not
Yeah.
So the creation of the IWAR branch is really taking the information operations community of the Army and the psychological operations community of the Army and combining that into one branch, right? And that branch is going to reside in the large Army. It's going to be a conventional force branch, and it's going to be a branch that a second lieutenant, well, as soon as they receive their commission, can assess into that branch, right? So
which is not the way it is currently.
Which is not the way it is currently, right?
Okay.
Typically in the IO world, you're going to get a post company command captain or early major that VTIPs into the IO field. And in the PSYOP world, you do have lieutenants, but typically they're senior lieutenants, captains that go through the soft selection process and then go into the psychological operations qualification course, right? So this is going to be a branch, similar to infantry, right? That you're going to have key developmental jobs throughout your career. There's going to be a career path, and it's going to be its own branch with its own branch insignia and its own branch color and that sort of thing. So again, a functional, a conventional force whole of Army solution that is also able to service and support the special operation forces.
So as this gets matured, soldiers in this IWAR community can expect increasingly, or compared to today, more transition back and forth between special forces and the regular Army as their career progresses.
I think that's exactly it. There's going to be those more opportunities to serve in both capabilities. There's also going to be, potentially more command opportunities at the various levels. So I think, a few generations from now, IWAR officers are going to be a really, really important part of our Army formation. So.
Yeah, for sure. I don't believe you mentioned this, but enlisted Ockfield as well.
Yes, absolutely. As well as warrant officers, right? So
entry level for that too.
most likely, but we're not sure how that's going to look.
Sure,
Right.
sure. Yeah.
It's still early in the development. And there's a lot of force management, planning, and decisions that need to be made. But yeah, I believe there's going to be a tremendous amount of enlisted, warrant, and commissioned officer opportunities.
Right. Um, uh, is there any kind of like a tie-in with your previous work at the GEC and what you're doing now? How does that informing the discussions around the hallway?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, specifically with the mis and disinformation fight, that is going to be, um, and I think we'll get into it in a little while. But the transformation in contact that the Army has been doing. There's an entire campaign objective that is dedicated to information modernization that is going to be coming out. IWAR being a piece of that. And if you drill down into the sub objectives and tasks that are being planned out, combating mis and disinformation is going to be one of those KLE or key um, requirements and tasks that we're going to be able to do.
Hmm.
Now, I still believe that it needs to be a whole of government approach, and that the Department of War shouldn't necessarily be in the lead for the countering of mis and disinformation, but on the battlefield, in specific AORs, that's we've definitely got a role there. Um, and
Well, my understanding is that, everybody wants good, clean, instantaneous information sharing, and but that's just not reality. So tactical units have to have some sort of innate capability of discerning, what is and isn't true, uh, which is still not going to be perfect, but they need that ability on the battlefield because you're certainly not going to be able to rely on external providers of that information to do it in the speed of relevance.
yeah, that's right. And if an information warfare officer on the brigade or division staff can help clarify that fog of war just a little bit for a commander and assist in the decision making for the commander, that's an immediate value added position to have on your staff.
Mm, right. Yeah, for sure. Um, how does IWAR um, dovetail, integrate with, complement like Army's recent doctrine, ADP 3-13 information, which I think came out in 2023 or maybe early 2024. But uh, how are you guys like aligning onto that kind of doctrine?
Yeah, so the ADP 313, will need to be updated, right?
Mm,
Once IWAR is officially established, and we start having trained folks, but that document, which came out of the Combined Arms Center, which is again that
mm.
one of the three legs.
Yep.
So we've got the doctrine people that are leaning into this. I think, from my perspective, that ADP 313 is still probably a good 80% solution,
Hmm.
right? We're just going to have to update it for, okay, this is now how uh, we're formed, and IWAR breaks down some of the stovepipes that are currently out there, and I think 313 and IWAR are actually pretty synergistic, right? Because one of the things ADP 313 was trying to do was kind of level the playing field and break down some of those inherent stovepipes, right? And have an understanding that information is cross-cutting across all the the war fighting functions and that sort of thing. Well, within our own community, we've got our own stovepipe. So that's going to help to alleviate that. So yeah, it's going to have to be updated, but we are fully aligned with it as we're moving forward. I don't have any doubts about that.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. I just wanted to ask you a couple more questions, and these can be almost like lightning round questions. I'm no expectation of some long response, but just some things that uh, popped off for me as I was thinking about talking to you in during this episode. But a word that I've been hearing more of lately that I must admit I don't fully understand. But could you explain the concept of convergence and what that means on the modern battlefield, and then maybe talk a little bit about how IWAR integrates with the concept of convergence. And I may not even be asking that right. I mean, I understand what it means to converge, but I don't fully understand the concept of convergence when it comes to the modern battlefield.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And really, from my perspective, convergence is that next level from synchronizing and coordinating, right? So you can synchronize with your left and right echelons, but when you converge and you're really leveraging all the capabilities that are within your right limit and your left limit to increase your war fighting capability on the
Hmm.
battlefield, that's when you're reaching a higher level of capability, right? And
Hmm.
so when we talk about convergence of IWAR and cyber, for
Hmm.
example,
Hmm.
we're not just talking about an IWAR officer coordinating with a cyber planner in order to use cyber capabilities as a delivery method for message X, right? We're talking more along the lines of thinking about all the capabilities that we can that cyber brings to the table beyond just a conduit, right? They've got
Hmm.
tremendous capabilities that are out there, and if we are more effective in leveraging the full scope of their capabilities and combining those and synchronizing those, then we're finding true convergence. So I think it's really, again, kind of a term of art to
Hmm.
elevate to convergence so that you're really leveraging each other's capabilities.
I see. Yeah, I don't want to be pedantic or but I mean, do you draw any major distinction between convergence and combined arms?
Hmm. Um, well, that's a great question. Do I see? Well, yeah. I mean, I guess let's talk real quick about the science and the art
Uh-huh.
of war, right?
Okay, sure. Yeah.
And again, this is my opinion. I'm not a doctrine man.
Yeah,
You know, I'm
right,
not
right,
a I'm not a
right.
PhD in military studies, but you know, combined arms is the act of using our ground forces, our air forces, our
Hmm.
our maritime forces, and all that to especially affect the lethal part of the battlefield, right? Um, I would say convergence is a little bit more focused on those bespoke capabilities, right?
Ah, yeah, yeah.
And within maritime forces and ground forces, right? You've got IO and you got PSYOP and you got cyber. Well,
Mm,
how do you
hmm.
how do you can you leverage to the utmost those capabilities, and
Yeah.
really then you're enhancing the combined arm fight, right? So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I see this the distinction that you're making there. It almost seems to me, as a Marine, that convergence is maybe a subset of combined arms, except convergence is using modern day capabilities, which, maybe didn't exist 10, 20, 50 years ago in order to have a effect on the enemy. So instead of, laying down suppressive fires with a with a rifle company and then dropping artillery on them while they're hunkered down, that's like classic, combined arms. You're talking about, not you're not discounting that, but you're also saying, hey, we can also bring cyber and informational effects into the mix as well, and that you would call convergence.
And there's probably some doctrine folks out there that are
Yeah,
saying
that are saying
they are very
these guys don't know what the heck they're talking about. Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
right.
Hey, if if that's happening, yeah, please hit me up on LinkedIn and let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Anyway, all of this goes to, the kind of thing, if you ask 10 different people about information related technology and capabilities, you'll get many different opinions. How does IWAR relate to, and maybe you and your colleagues up there in the Strategic Operations Directorate are able to, get together frequently and talk about, this stuff. But how do you guys integrate with the Army's new like systems warfare initiatives and like multi-domain precision strike complexes? I saw that on a website somewhere recently. How is all that factoring into your efforts these days?
So, IWAR is another piece of the transformation in contact for the
Ah,
Army,
okay,
and
yeah.
and these types of initiatives fall into that category as well. So, credit to the senior Army leaders; they're looking across all domains and all applications and capabilities, and say, how can we do things better, more efficiently, more lethal? IWAR can be lethal as well, right? And so we are I think we're on the scope, we're on the radar screen of Army senior leaders, just as those other warfighting capabilities that you're mentioning. So fully integrated with those types of things. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. And transformation in contact um, really is a great, phrase, or, something to rally around, especially uh, thinking about the information fight. I mean, we are literally in contact right now when it comes to the information fight. So,
Absolutely.
you and your colleagues, Rob, are, working on some really important stuff right now. So we, wish you guys Godspeed as you continue to do great work. I'd like to maybe wrap up in our typical fashion. Do you think, Rob, you could offer a research question that a command and staff or other student might take a crack at if they're interested in the kinds of things that you've been discussing, which could advance our understanding or some of these initiatives?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks again for the time. I really truly believe that, that transformation in contact comment is, IWAR personifies that, right? It is we are moving at a very rapid pace. We are understanding what transitions need to be made, and we're moving forward with them. And much credit has to be given to the Army senior leadership that is recognizing that and supporting these types of efforts. But as far as research goes, I go all the way back to our opening discussion, and if we've ceded ground in the mis and disinformation fight, where else are we falling behind, lagging behind, where our adversaries might be filling those gaps that are out there. I think a great research project would be to bring forward, right? How does the government, U.S. government, or Department of War or Army, right? What part does each level of that? What do they play in filling the gap of information operations, or operations in the information environment, countering mis or disinformation, that sort of thing, and ultimately that means, how do we compete more effectively, right? It needs to be a constant, you know, looking at ourselves in the mirror. Where are we compared to our adversaries? And, if we determine that we are in fact ceding ground or losing ground, how do we make up for that ground? And I think, as much individual and organizational energy that we can put to that problem set, we will all be better off, whole of government wide.
Mm, mm. Right. I guess a follow-up question on that. And so I hear frequently at the geopolitical or at the nation state level, a lot of people are familiar with the argument that for democracies, the West in general, our great advantage is our openness and airing our laundry in public, and it's that hurly-burly of our discourse is a major strength for us. And perhaps it'll carry the day in that it makes us more resilient and stronger and so on and so forth compared to authoritarian regimes. But when it comes to military units, and getting down to the fight, um, I mean, there's lots of different ways that militaries can organize as well, but when it comes right down to it, you've got structured units engaging with other, structured military units, and that kind of, Western democracy, open discourse, perceived benefit is just not there. And how does that, fit into, you know, student researching? How do we catch up on that kind of thing where it comes down to, tactical engagement?
That's a great question. I think, putting a little context into that, I had a unique opportunity to study, for my master's degree, with a unique cohort that had about 173 different countries represented, and there was about 75 people within the cohort. And what I quickly realized was the folks that were from the different countries. I think I said that wrong. Sorry.
Okay.
We had 175 students representing
Mm-hmm.
73 countries.
Okay.
And a lot of these countries, a lot of these students came from countries that did not have a good relationship with their military. And I spent an enormous amount of time just building trust on an individual level, because once they found out I was in the military, they were very hesitant to engage with me,
Mm.
because they grew up in a culture, in a country where, if they see military, they don't run to the military, they want to run away from the military,
Mm.
right?
Hmm.
And so there's this natural distrust of the military. Now, here in the United States, the Western standard, the military continues to be one of the bastions of organizations that the general public still has a lot of trust in,
Yep.
and especially government functions, right? So the dichotomy between what we see in other countries and what we see here in the United States, as far as the military is concerned, is night and day, right? If we have an emergency here and our forces are activated, whether it's the National Guard or active duty, people go to the military, right? And that's a huge benefit and dynamic that we can leverage in the IWAR fight too, right? When we go to another country, and as a United States military, and we've got information warfare practitioners, we are already at an advantage because we are we are trusted. And I give great credit to those that preceded us in our military, but
Yeah.
we're in a good spot right now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's a great perspective amidst a discussion space where there are some, definite concerns. And then lastly, Rob, do you think you could offer a book or maybe an online resource that a interested audience member might check out?
Well, yes, and I mean,
Well, I mean, there's lots, I'm sure.
there's lots, right?
Yeah.
I've got two, right? And the first one is obvious, and people might roll their eyes a little bit, but I think always going back and reading Sun Tzu is a great reminder of why we do things like information warfare, right? One of Sun Tzu's tenets was, uh, win the war without ever firing a shot, basically, right? I'm paraphrasing, but using information warfare to convince the enemy that it is not worth fighting. I think it's a great read. It's a short read. It's one that continues to bring perspective for military professionals across the board. The other one, I was actually given the book by one of your recent guests, Hatteras Hoops,
Is that right? Okay.
which had the opportunity to see him earlier in the year, and he passed on a book by Ian Williams called "The Fire of the Dragon," and it's all about China's new Cold War, excuse me. And it's a fascinating read, and it gets into the information warfare perspective. Why is Taiwan so important? Those types of things, and for folks that are in our space and they really want to understand where the adversary or our pacing threat is coming from, this book should be a must read.
Okay, some dynamite suggestions. One classic that is good for everybody, and then a new one as well. And we'll have links to those in the show notes. And with that, Rob Thelan, thank you so much for being a guest on the Cognitive Crucible.
John, I really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
The Cognitive Crucible is the only podcast dedicated to increasing interdisciplinary collaboration between information operations practitioners, scholars, and policymakers. To find out more about the Information Professionals Association, visit us at information-professionals.org. Please support our podcast by giving us a 5-star rating and leaving a review.